March, welcome to the Personal Best podcast.
Thanks for having me.
It's so amazing to have you here. I'm really excited for this conversation, but I feel like I want to start with a bit of a disclaimer because I've spoken a lot on this podcast about self-improvement and how we can better ourselves through doing hard things and building discipline and pushing ourselves outside of our comfort zone. And whilst I think that's important to build physical and mental toughness, I realize that sometimes those lessons aren't applicable to everybody and they're actually becoming your best self. The theme of this podcast is different and it is individual. And I know from your personal experience that you've had to navigate an entirely different path to most people. And I want to start by asking if you could share a bit of your story and how it shaped who you are today.
Absolutely, I can. So, I was born with a syndrome that affects 5 major organs of the body. I had my left lung removed when I was 11. I've got 1 kidney, scoliosis. I was born without an esophagus, and I have to have surgery on that every 3 to 4 years. And when I was 18, I was in an induced coma for 2 months. Almost died, came back from it, from the depths. Had to relearn how to walk, talk, write, and eat. And the trauma from that, I think, has totally shaped who I am today. So that was 10 years ago, the coma. And from it all, I was working after uni, a job in the travel industry. And it was quite catty, the industry itself. And I remember being at a big business lunch and somebody from the company who didn't even know me, it was a client, commented on my size and my appearance. And I burst into tears. And I was like, what am I doing with my life? I am doing something that doesn't give me purpose. It doesn't get me out of bed in the morning. What am I doing? So from there, I remember one of my mum's friends was like, darling, everyone comes to you for advice. Have you ever thought about being a life coach? And I was like, what is a life coach? I had no idea. And I think just from then, it all stemmed into something incredible, and it's helped me become the healthiest version of myself today. So going back to what you were saying about, being the best version of yourself, I think everything has aligned for me to become this person today.
Yeah, I mean, what a story. I feel like it's just remarkable, what you've been through and how you've been able to, turn that into something positive, I guess, and how it has given you that purpose. And I read something the other day, and I'm probably going to butcher the quote, that said, knowledge is possessing those lessons, but wisdom is sharing it with other people. And I feel like for anybody that has gone through adversities in life and different hardships, if they can then kind of harness that and share the lessons with others, I just think that is such a powerful thing. And that's obviously what you have been able to do with your coaching. And I think credit to your mum's friend who first suggested it, because that is so amazing. But obviously, I can imagine dealing with all of that health stuff must have been so hard. Were there any specific moments that changed how you saw yourself and your capabilities?
That's a really interesting question. So in terms of how I saw myself, I remember being at university, and this is age 18, and I'd gone through so much already up until that point, and I was on the path of destruction, drinking so much alcohol, till I black out, just being out till the early hours every weekend, chest infection after chest infection after chest infection, eating junk food, and I mean trash, and none of it was supporting my body. I was literally in destruct, but outwardly I appeared like the most confident human being probably that was in a room. And it's from that, I think, I've realized that I was the most insecure version of myself possible. I was hiding my disability. I was hiding my chronic illness. I was embarrassed by everything to do with it. And I wasn't acknowledging any part of myself So I was hiding all my symptoms. I was hiding my pain, my struggles. And when you hide a part of yourself, you're telling yourself that a version of you doesn't exist. So you're living a lie, essentially. And I think I was doing that for such a long time. That was my coping strategy. So when I think back to a moment that maybe shaped me, is I got such a bad chest infection after we left uni. And I was like, I can't do this anymore. I need to change something. And when I say I got a chest infection, my pneumonia is with my one lung. You can't move. You can't move off the sofa. You can't breathe. You're coughing thousands of times a day. It's obviously part of it is out of your control, but a lot of the things that I do day to day can help me become the most fit version of myself as possible. So I guess when I think back to that, it's like all the micro habits has helped me like thrive with chronic illness.
Yeah. And I think that's interesting. And I know you often talk about how disabilities and illnesses aren't always visible. And that's so true. Obviously, if you are at university and you're out partying like everybody else, people wouldn't really question if anything else was wrong. And I'm sure a lot of people can relate to that, whether they are dealing with physical or mental difficulties. You kind of put up this front and pretend like everything's fine, but actually you're not dealing with like the root issue. And I think over time that can cause real problems.
You're so right. Like when you ignore emotions, essentially what's going to happen? Imagine your body being like a bottle. You ignore the emotion, those emotions fill up that bottle and it's going to explode. Whether or not that's when you're at a drinks party and you just get absolutely hammered and burst into tears and that's how you deal with it, or it's on the other scale where you withdraw. And it's that fine line between this is people's coping mechanisms.
Yes.
And so it's being aware that pretty much everyone that you know is going through something. Whether that's like physical pain, mental struggles, emotional struggles. There are so many different variations of challenges that people face.
Yeah, I had an ex-boyfriend. I really hope he's not going to be listening to this podcast. But during our relationship, I always thought he was so emotionally cut off and really struggled to talk about his feelings. Even when we broke up after, you know, a couple years together, he was laughing. He was like emotionless. And it wasn't until we met up a few months later that he basically broke down on me and explained all the difficult like things that he'd been dealing with. And I thought, oh my gosh, you've been bottling this up for so long. And I think maybe men do it more than women just because of the nature of their friendships and relationships. But yeah, I think if you can talk to people whilst you're going through stuff, it just makes everything so much easier, and people are there to support you and they are there to help you. And I think that's just a good reminder for everybody. But I wanted to ask you how you found the strength to rebuild your confidence after experiencing these, I guess, life-altering events.
Confidence is a journey. There's no destination, there's no endpoint. Living with illness, you kind of have a choice. My illnesses are incurable. No one's going to be able to regrow my lung. Lung transplants, it's not a happy outcome yet. It's not to say that medicine won't get there, because it might. And I don't need another kidney. You know, I can't have surgery on my scoliosis. So it's accepting your body, like your body changing, moving through it, and that takes time. Acceptance is the key, and embodying what you are, not what you're not, and that's really important. We talk about grieving yourself, the past version of yourself with chronic illness, and that's such an important part of the process to move through it, especially the feelings. And don't get me wrong, there are weeks that are so bad where I can't move, the fatigue is so crippling, I am in the lowest mood and I can't get out of bed. And in those moments, I don't feel confident. I don't feel happy. I don't feel empowered. But I've got the tools now to like harness my emotions and recognize them and go, hey, I'm only human. And this is what I'm dealing with. And I'm dealing with a huge, huge weight. And so is 16 million people in the UK live with a chronic illness.
Really?
That's a lot of people.
Yeah.
And so when you think about it like that, you know, it makes me realize I'm not alone. And I'm not that different. We're all different.
Yeah. I think that self-acceptance is absolutely the first step. And I can imagine, you know, there is a certain frustration when you perhaps can't do the things that you want to do or the things that you used to be able to do. But I think dealing with what you have right now is really important. And I'm sure that's a message that you share with your clients as well. And I guess on that point, how did you also shift your mindset to not let your illness define you?
Interesting question. I think in a way it does define you.
Yeah.
Right? Lots of people get offended and they're like, my chronic illness doesn't define me. My disability doesn't define me. And I don't want it to be a defining factor of my representation, my identity. But at the same time, in order to feel confident in my body, I've got to go, look, this is what I've got. And I'm going to own it. Yeah. I have to sit on the priority seat on public transport. It's my life. Who cares? Yeah, I have to ask for help when I'm going through an airport with my bags or my luggage, or I have to wear a face mask in public and risk, you know, looks from strangers. But it's my life and I don't care. And that is confidence. And as much as, you know, it doesn't, you know, people don't like to say it doesn't define me. It doesn't define me. I'm just trying to embrace it as best I can. So it's part of me and we're like a little team.
Yeah. I think that's a really nice approach to have. And I guess with that, it's hard to not compare yourself to other people. I'm sure, like, you know, growing up, going through university, all of that, you're constantly comparing yourself to your peers. And I wonder how you manage to overcome that in a way and I guess stay strong in yourself.
Comparison is the thief of joy. We know that.
But
yeah, we're all human and we all do it. I think social media plays such a big role in that. It's so powerful. I mean, we would have never met without social media, which is amazing. But at the same time, it's really difficult when you see your friends, your family going about their life with freedom and independence that you know you probably will never have. And again, that plays a massive role in your acceptance journey. Comparison is a really difficult one because a lot of envy and jealousy themes come up with it. But I think if you stand firm in where you want to go, what you want to do, who you want to be, that comparison piece kind of fades.
Yeah, and I'm really big on this idea of compare yourself to who you were yesterday, not to who someone else is today. And I understand if you're dealing with chronic illness, you know, your journey can be quite up and down. So it's not, you know, you're not always like progressing forwards. But I think it's about, yeah, staying on your own path. And as you say, sort of looking at your own goals and what you want to do personally. And it is so hard when you are shown, you know, all these different people on social media. Like we're in our 20s, like it feels like there's endless options that you can be doing with your life, and how do you know if you're on the right path or not? But I guess having some of that self-introspection, that self-awareness to think, no, I'm on my own journey and that's okay. Like I don't need to be trying to match up to other people's ideas of what I should be doing.
And that, you're so right, you've just articulated it so well. Knowing that you're on your own journey, especially with chronic illness, is so important. Like, you're not going to be waking up at 6 a.m, going to the gym before you go to work. You're not going to be, you know, doing an hour-long morning routine with your green juice and, you know, your podcast on with your manifestations. It's just not going to happen every day. But it's acknowledging what you can do. That's such an important part of feeling fulfilled.
Yeah.
Feeling like your identity hasn't been stripped away.
Yeah. And I think something that I've dealt with, I guess, and I hate saying this journey of self-improvement because really we're just like, you know,
humans
living life and being human. But I think it's hard sometimes to find the balance between being ambitious and wanting more for yourself, but also having that self-compassion. How do you find that balance?
I find it extremely hard. I'm in a body and in a brain that wants to do everything, but in a body that just doesn't play ball.
Yeah.
So the days that I have to rest and lie on my bed and work from bed for 2 days and rearrange coaching clients, and I've got a dog, I live with friends, like social life, it generally feels like managing a full-time job on top of another full-time job, alongside hospital appointments and doctor's appointments, medication. Like, it is a lot. I mean, it's stressful.
Yeah.
But with time, it becomes easier.
And I think as well, there's a certain guilt that comes with it. And I've really tried to realize this, that it's okay to rest. Like, I don't need to feel guilty about it. Like, if I sit on the sofa after a day of work and whatever else, and I'm like watching Netflix, I find that, like, I feel guilty about it, which in a way is so stupid, because I do think that rest is as productive as going out and doing the things that you want to do.
If not more. Your body's literally calling for you to lie the hell down.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm going to do.
Yeah. And I guess, how do you incorporate that, like, guilt-free rest?
It's a work in progress.
Yeah.
It's a work in progress. But I'm trying to, like, schedule rest into my calendar. They say you should schedule moments of joy. And I'm scheduling moments of rest.
Yeah.
Because otherwise I just go and I go and I go. And then I burn out.
And I guess you have to almost pre-plan that. And I think that's what we're really bad at. Like you say, is we do so much, we take on so much, and then we reach a point of exhaustion and burnout. And then we're like, oh yeah, maybe I should rest a bit. Yeah. But actually, if you can schedule that in, along with the other stuff that you need to do, I think that's a much better approach.
Schedule in the guilt-free rest.
Yeah.
We're here for it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And this leads me on to something I've been thinking about recently, touched on it at the beginning, is that I think doing hard things is a bit overrated if it's your only focus. And there's so much irony in this, because I posted a Instagram reel about doing hard things and it went crazy viral. And yes, I think stepping into these difficult situations, I guess, builds resilience and it teaches you valuable lessons. But if every day is a battle, if every decision is driven by the pressure to do hard things, I think life can start to feel quite exhausting, and it can feel like we're chasing this growth constantly and it's a constant grind. And I think, as we say, it's important to make space for the things you do love doing, whether that is scrolling in bed and watching a bit of TikTok, hanging out with friends, like grabbing pastry and a coffee. And I think it's important for people to realize that these things don't make you lazy or less productive, and they're actually really important to recharge. And I think for me, I realized I'd rather live a life that I love than constantly be doing things that I hate. And that in order to get the most happiness out of life, it is about seeking growth, but it's also about enjoying the process.
Oh, you're so right. You're so right. Brené Brown says this quote: I don't need to chase extraordinary moments of happiness. It can be found in the simple things, as long as I'm paying attention.
Yes, the attention part is key.
You know?
Yeah.
And that sums up exactly what you're saying. Like, slow down. We all rush and we strive, and that's what social media does as well. It plays a huge role in striving for the best, going viral, doing the next, juice cleanse.
Yeah.
And it's so intense. And then you feel like a lesser of a person if you haven't achieved. And I feel like we deal with so many pressures because of it.
Yeah, and I think also we then end up attaching our sense of self-worth to, like, achieving all these, I guess, difficult things. And there is a place for it. Like, I'm a big advocate of going out there and pushing yourself. Just personally, I've ran a marathon and that was hard, but I don't want to constantly be doing that. And I'd rather build a life that brings me enjoyment and brings me happiness. And I think it's very personal to you. You know, there are people that want to do these more difficult things and build that into their routine, and that's fine. But there's also people that probably prefer the slower life, and I think that's fine as well. But social media tends to just push one narrative, I think.
The toxic productivity.
Yeah.
That's the one,
Yeah.
I think, that does it. It's that, you know, if you're not doing all of these things, you're doing it wrong. And I think that's what I want to interrupt in the space is you can do it slow. You can do it your pace. Your identity is your identity. That's the bit that will empower people.
Yeah. And I also think it gets quite overwhelming, you know, when people have these like 10-step morning routines, because then you're thinking, oh, but, you know, my morning routine doesn't look like this. And in order to have a good day, I need to get up at 5 a.m. As you say, like, I need to read my journal. I need to have the green juice. Especially this new year, I realized there were so many people going and doing 75 hard. So many. And I'm like, it's not necessary.
If it aligns to you, it aligns to you. And don't get me wrong, that is a beautiful thing. There's weeks that go by, I don't have a morning routine. Because getting out of bed and brushing my teeth and getting in the shower, that is hard enough. So it's giving yourself credit and permission to just be. And enjoy. Someone said to me the other day, and this might sound quite morbid, they were like, if you pass away tomorrow, we were all talking about it at dinner, you know, what would you want to have been doing? And I said, well, I wanted to be a dancer. And they were like, well, why are you not doing it? And I was like, why am I not doing it? You know, it's that inner child approach. What used to light you up when you were a child? And I think it's going back to that, and that will guide you on your way. Yeah,
because we definitely lose that childlike fun as we get older, and I think everything turns a bit, I don't know,
serious.
Serious, and we forget how to like have fun. And this sounds so ridiculously stupid, but that's also something that I really want to try and do, is just incorporate more fun into my life. Because I enjoy going to the gym. I enjoy doing the mindset stuff, the journaling. I think all of those habits are really great. But I realized that when I then connect with friends, it's like those are the moments where actually I'm getting the most fun out of my life. And it's so easy to let all of that slip away. Or like you say, doing things that you enjoyed as a child. Like I love baking.
Me too.
Love it. And I used to do so much of it. Like my weekends would be spent baking cupcakes for my family. And then I recently got some more baking equipment. I've been doing more baking, and that makes me so happy. But I just kind of forgot that was a fun hobby because it's not productive.
It's going back to these like moments of joy. Mel Robbins says on her podcast.
Love her.
We love Mel Robbins. If you can incorporate into your calendar moments of joy, and I do moments of rest as well, you're winning. I mean, life is a balance, right? So it's health. It's like work and career. And then it's love and relationships. So love and relationships, social life, you know, your family and friends, your partners. Health, such a big pillar. We know when something's not being nourished in your health, it can have a huge effect on everything else. And then career and work. So if you have it all in a balance, maybe you're scheduling in all of those 3 areas to make sure they're all being met in your calendar every week, just to make life a bit less serious.
But for you, what habits or routines help you feel better physically and mentally? I had a guest on a little while back called Sam Hands, and he spoke about this metaphor of almost having your personal toolbox of things that make you feel good. And I just wonder what that looks like for you.
Yeah, love that. I call it a chronic illness toolbox with all my clients, so that's really funny. What helps me? Eating well. When I eat well, my energy feels stable. And that's so impactful when you've got so much other stuff going on. So learning about food and nutrition has been so important. In my energy journey, I speak about energy so much. Could speak about it all day. Movement, if I can. Again, like, if I can't, just taking myself out, natural daylight exposure.
Mm.
So important for being able to sleep, your cortisol levels, your stress levels, just getting the UV into your eyes every day, even if it's just 15 minutes with your morning tea. Bliss. Tea. Tea is my thing. I mean, obsessed. So food and nutrition for sure. Movement if I can. I do go to the gym 3 days a week. And if I can't, I'll do Pilates. But they're big ones for me. And also doing things that light me up. I don't know how long I'm going to be around for. You know, living with one lung, you're so vulnerable to life, everything. The bugs, the viruses. It is quite out of your control. So if I can do things every day that make me feel good, then I'm winning.
Yeah, no, that is so important. And, you know, those are all things that people can incorporate into their own life. And I think sometimes it is a bit overlooked, like the importance of just having those solid foundations in place. And, you know, often we can think, why aren't I feeling good? Like, why are my energy levels low? And it's like, have you eaten nutritious food? Have you got the, you know, sunlight into your eyeballs? Have you done some form of movement? Like, we know that these things make us feel good, but we just kind of forget, I think, when life gets in the way. And for me, those things are kind of non-negotiables now, but I know there are, you know, a lot of people where those habits do start to slip, and I think it's important to just have a reminder of actually these things will make you feel good.
100%. And there are moments where I feel so anxious. I mean, weeks on end where I feel so anxious, and they know that anxiety kills creativity, but also creativity can help anxiety. So it's this slightly toxic spiral where you're feeling anxious, so you don't want to go and do the things. But you know those things, whatever those creative outlets are, whether it's the walk, whether it's the gym, whether it's, you know, going to cuddle a dog, yoga, whatever it is, you know that's probably going to alleviate some of the anxiety.
Yeah. And something else I wanted to ask you is, what advice would you give to someone who feels like their health is holding them back from reaching their potential?
Making life easier for yourself when you've got something wrong with your health is the way forward. That I call it like energy saving methods. So energy saving methods might be having a list on the notes app on your phone that's like hacks for the bad days. Cooking your favorite comfort food, watching, you know, uplifting movies, listening to your favorite songs, just so when you are in that place, you've got an easy go-to. It's part of your toolbox. You just whip it out. You know, you might be feeling low on energy, and it's like, hey, what can I do to save energy? I know I'll cut out, you know, speaking too much, or I'll surround myself with non-toxic people. Your environment is such an important factor about how you're feeling, right? So you don't change you as a person, you might change your environment. And it's like, what other things can I do to help save energy? I know, drink 2 to 3 liters of water a day, plan my outfit the night before I go to sleep. There's so many things that you can be doing that will help you conserve that energy, and it's so precious.
Yeah. For you, how important is, you know, having those solid relationships around you? Because I understand there's so much that we can do for ourselves to make ourselves feel better, and, as you say, work out the things that will help you. But what have you learned about, I guess, leaning on people around you?
I love this kind of question. Your support system is so vital in how you feel, how, you know, the 3 basic human needs: love, safety, and belonging. And if you feel love, if you feel safe, and you feel like you belong, you feel valued as a human being. And so it's just assessing that and being like, are these 3 things for me being supported and nourished? And I'm so lucky that I have such an incredible support system around me, amazing family that will be there at my hospital appointments. I mean, the hard part about living with illness is not having the confidence to ask, asking for help. You feel like a burden. That's a very reoccurring theme for people. You know, feeling like a burden for asking for help, or, you know, if I do this, then it's, you know, then it means this, and they lose out on this. More often than not, people are wanting to help you. And so surrounding yourself with good people is so important for how confident and empowered and how loved you feel. So that's my message. And if people aren't supporting you or aren't giving you the energy that you want, maybe reassess.
I understand when you are living with chronic illness, you know, the people around you will have to help you more. than maybe somebody who isn't. But I think there's still a really important lesson in that it's okay to ask for help when you need it. And like you say, people are more often than not willing to give you that.
And if they're not, reassess.
Yeah.
You know, as humans, we're there to understand, to care for each other. And if they're not being caring of your situation, it's like you're dealing with so much already. So they should be understanding of that. And yeah, having a good support system is so important.
We've spoken about the fact that you coach other people who also have chronic illness. I know you mentioned earlier that a family member advised that you go into this life coaching, but what was the moment of, I guess, inspiration where you were like, oh, I'm going to make a career out of this?
After that business meeting that I was talking about.
Yeah.
Where I got called out. There was 20 people there, called out for my size. I mean, I'm a petite gal. And for 15 years, I've struggled to put on weight. I know everyone has an opposite problem, and weight is such a delicate subject for a lot of people. But I've struggled to put on weight. I've actively been trying for 15 years. I've got a very healthy appetite. It's just, I've had a lot of antibiotics, over 250 courses in my life.
Wow.
So my body doesn't work and absorb in the same way everyone else's does. So that was a massive moment for me. It's a very sensitive subject. If someone comments on my size or my appearance for how petite I am, it's a real trigger. And I've been doing a lot of work to move through that. And it was in that moment I thought, I'm better than this. I don't need this. My value is more. And I went away and I worked and I went away and I researched loads about coaching. I got on calls with other people that I knew were in the industry, learned as much as I could, and then worked to do my coaching certification alongside my travel agency job. And so I did that for a year. And then I was certified. And it was a bit weird after you get certified because you're like, I'm here. Yeah. I'm ready.
Come to me.
Come on, clients. And then it's kind of crickets for a few months.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh no, maybe this was the worst idea in the world. And don't get me wrong, there are bad days, like we were saying earlier. There are days where you're like, what am I doing? What am I doing? Am I doing the right thing? Should I be doing more? Maybe this isn't my path. It's those moments of doubt. But like any entrepreneurs know, you've got to push through those.
Yes.
And knowing that what you're doing, hopefully, is providing some value and making people be seen and heard.
Yeah, and I think it's hard in those moments of self-doubt because I guess particularly as a life coach, people are coming to you for advice on how to feel confident and how they can live better and how they can navigate chronic illness. And if it feels like that's a struggle for you in that moment, it's almost hard to then, put on the coaching front. And I get it with the podcast. If I'm talking about being the best version of yourself and then I have a day or a week or a month where I just feel rubbish and like the opposite of that, it makes me start to question, should I be talking about these things? But I think it's important to remember in those moments that you still have a lot of value and lessons that you can share with people. And where you're at in your journey now, there will be people that are 10 steps behind you that, look up to you for advice. And yes, there'll be people that are ahead of you as well. But if you can, offer a helping hand to those people who aren't where they want to be, then you can get so much value from that.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, you said that so well.
I hope so.
No, you did. You did. I was with you. I was with you all the way. Yeah, I just think back to myself as a little girl who got these scary diagnoses and didn't know where to go, who to turn to. There was nothing. There was no one. And so I hope in some way, and don't get me wrong, I'm not the only person in the space that's providing an outlet for people. But in my little corner of the internet, I hope I'm helping people feel like they belong.
Yeah, and I think that's so amazing that you can be that person for those people. Having done the work that you have, what would you say is, I guess, the most common struggles that people with chronic illness tend to be dealing with?
A lot of it's around judgment.
Okay.
Fear of judgment. Fears. The core fears. And lots of it's fear of failure, feeling like their bodies failed them, or that they're failing themselves by not being able to, do the things that they were once free to do that they're now not. Judgment of other people's opinions, how people view them, judging themselves on their own body and how it's changed. They're the reoccurring themes, and especially feelings of guilt. That's a massive one. Feeling guilty for having an illness, feeling guilty that you need extra help, feeling guilty that you have to spend the money on yourself when, you want it to be going to other things. It's not a choice. For healthy people, investing in your health is a choice. But for people that live with chronic health conditions or disabilities, it's a necessity.
Yeah, and it's crazy really, because not only are you dealing with difficulties of having the chronic illness, but then you're beating yourself up for feeling, feeling these emotions of having the chronic illness. I know Chris Williamson talks about it of secondary emotions. So like the first emotion is like maybe you're feeling sad about something, but then the secondary emotion is you feel guilty about feeling sad, and then you're stressed because you feel guilty because you feel sad, and it's this massively like compounding effect. How do you help people, shift their way of thinking to something more positive?
A massive first step is awareness. So noticing you're even doing it. And that's the hardest thing. It's like, hey, I'm catching the thought before it's even happened. Because a lot of times with chronic illness, you think you're starting to flare, and you go, oh my goodness, I'm flaring. Tomorrow I'm going to have to cancel everything. I'm not going to be able to get out of bed. It's going to be bad. I'm going to have to tell this. And so you run like it's something that's already happening.
Yes.
You're imagining the situation. You're suffering twice in your imagination. That's what I always say to my clients is, you're suffering in your imagination before it's even happened. So getting present is a massive one. And just awareness of your thoughts. When we're consciously aware of our thoughts, we can challenge them and go, hey, is this true? Is what I'm saying true right now? And so doing this sort of like for and against argument for both sets of information and rewiring your brain that way.
Yeah. You mentioned there about being present, and I imagine that that's a really key part of living with chronic illness, because the future is unpredictable. And I guess that's the same for everybody. But for you, how have you learned to be more present?
Mindset work, journaling every day, getting into your present self, checking in with your emotions, checking in with your symptoms. When we get up, we brush our teeth. We're doing all these things automatically. But what we want to start doing automatically is checking in with our mind. Where's our mind going? How's it feeling? Are we creating scenarios that don't exist? And when you level back there, that's how you become more present. You tune into your present self.
Yeah. I've let that habit slip recently, but I really need to get back into like the daily journaling. And Mel Robbins again talks about starting each week with a brain dump.
Yeah.
Or even the night before, say like a Sunday night, you write down all the things that are in your brain, all your worries, your concerns, things that are taking up space. And even just putting pen to paper, I think, releases a lot of those thoughts. And then the next day you're going into a new week with a much clearer mind.
I do a lot with my clients, the letting go letter. So we write this version of ourselves or beliefs about ourselves that we think exist. So mine might be, I believe that everybody's staring at me when I go out onto the tube, and my scoliosis is really ugly, and all of the things, the negative things that, I feel are true to me. And so we write this letter, and then we go to the bin and we burn the letter. And that, you let go of the things that you're holding on to, and it's kind of like the brain dumping you're talking about. Our brain is like a bucket. We fill it up with thoughts every single day. We have 70 to 80,000 thoughts a day.
Yeah, and I heard some crazy statistic that like 2/3 of those are negative.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
And you've really got to work hard to be like, you're not going to be positive all the time, and that toxic positivity as well is something that's a really fine balance. You're not going to be just this happy sort of, let's, nothing matters. we're not going to be like that.
Yeah.
That's just wild. But acknowledging the emotion is the best part. And, you know, thoughts create feelings, which controls behavior. So if I think a thought, right, I'm thinking, oh, I look really ugly in this bikini. It then controls my feelings. So I feel unworthy. I feel low self-esteem. And that's going to control my behavior on the beach. I'm going to cover up, you know, with a towel because I don't want anyone staring at my scars on my back. So that just shows you the power of thoughts and how important it is to check them and go, what am I saying to myself every single day, over and over and over, without even realizing?
Yeah, something that came to mind as you were just talking there is like how negative we are to ourselves. And actually, I like to think about how I'd talk to a friend in certain situations. And, you know, if my friend was feeling insecure about the way they looked and didn't want to wear the bikini on the beach, like I would tell them they look great, and I would, you know, be supportive and encouraging. And I think we need to kind of be that person to ourselves as well.
And don't get me wrong, I fall victim of it to myself the whole time. But I say to everyone, I say to my clients, I'm like, would you say that, like, would you say those words to a 5-year-old child?
Yeah.
No, you wouldn't. You know, don't ask for help because it makes you lazy. Like, resting too much makes you a burden. Like, you're not going to say that to a 5-year-old child. So we've got to try and not say it to ourselves.
Yeah.
Because you'll start to feel a certain way and then behave in a way that makes those thoughts true.
Yeah. Honestly, March, you've shared so much good advice and information in this podcast. But I wanted to ask you the question I ask every guest, which is if you had to give one piece of advice or share a quote or something to help people achieve their personal best, what would it be?
I love that.
Sorry, I really put you on the spot.
No, that's okay. Be yourself. Focus on your journey. And know that everything about you is unique. And that makes you amazing. None of us are the same.
Yeah.
If we were, it'd be so boring. So boring. And, you know, everyone's got their challenges. But that makes you the most resilient person, you know, you could be.
Yeah. Yeah. And I completely get that. Someone put that question to me recently and I said, no one can beat you at being you.
No.
And that's one of my favorite quotes that I try to live by, because as we've already explained, when you do fall into that comparison trap, it's so easy to think, oh, well, everyone's better than me, everyone's doing better than me. But actually what is special about you is the fact that you are unique. And I completely understand that sometimes we're dealing with a lot of baggage that, you know, we would rather not, but actually everything that you have dealt with and you are dealing with is making you who you are. And I think the lessons that you've shared today is actually how we can turn some of those negative experiences into something more positive and become, you know, more resilient, feel more confident, feel more empowered. And I think that's just so important. So thank you so much.
No, thank you.
And if anyone wants to follow you or find out about coaching, where can they go?
Oh, they can go to my Instagram page.
Yep.
At March On. The coaching link's on my bio.
Amazing. And I love your content, so everybody should go follow. But thank you so much for today. And thank you everybody for listening.